players, throw, your Beras, your Zapmans, people who are really fitting in well with the squad around them. But if you just put Netroid on an island, he is standing tall on that island and happily doing so. I think he is, like you said, a force to be reckoned with. And that goes for a lot of people on this team. I mean, you start to factor in what Variety's able to do. Sometimes he's just playing for the team and he's playing that role. He's grabbing a Guardian in the solo lane. Sometimes he's looking for solos. You look at Ting, same thing.
He's also grabbing Variety. He's also grabbing the Hell in the solo lane. That's a pick that he's
making
enjoyed.
You cry.
And making you cry. And the Valkyries won't be crying, at least at the hands of Hell here this game. Tiamat and Hell both banned out by the Valkyries. Yamoja, Fenrir, and Odin taken away by the Camelot Kings. So the Camelot Kings in a strong spot here. They're in the first pick slot. And this is a team that doesn't necessarily shy away from building their mindset early. And Genetics in in that interview was like, yeah, it gets annoying. The first two we kind of expected. The top 4 supports in the league, as he worded it, kind of expect to receive some of those bans. When you start getting a little bit further down, it does get annoying. So Genetics actually in a great spot here, Gore. Yeah. Ymir and Terra both left unbanned. Yamoja the only one banned away. So maybe in a spot where you can wait a little bit longer. Maybe you don't want to wait until that second wave, because whatever's remaining there might get banned out, but don't necessarily have to first pick either. I
will say this is a good spot for Raffer as well. Terra has been pretty kind to the Valkyries. Admittedly, they've only got 2 wins so far this phase. One of them was with the Terra, so I don't necessarily think it's something for them to shy away from. And Raffer's God Pool is something to, as we had highlighted, to maybe lean into here. The thing that is most notable to me, though, is the fact that the Kings kind of levied away from what we're used to seeing. The Valkyries have a very specific I want to say play style, or at least God Pool, that we've seen a lot of teams lean into and kind of ban out, specifically Johnny up front. And they just went with standard bans. So the Valkyries do get to have kind of the full range of picks that we're used to seeing out of them.
And that doesn't necessarily surprise me because of what Genetics said in the pregame interview. We're focusing on our game and finding that consistency. And right now, they're building a very Kings-esque draft. Granted, we've only seen 2 picks. But Terra and Osiris slots into what we know that this Kings team likes to play. On the other side, though, Gore, talk about top picks. It's not like the Valkyries didn't get anything good in their top 2 either. Gilgamesh has been high priority. Raijin, as well, has been kind of that stalwart. We don't get Tiamat. We don't get, or maybe in this case, want Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah.
Raijin's kind of that tried and true answer, so some comfort maybe for Zeros in the mid lane.
Yeah, and I honestly think Zeros has been looking much better on this pick as of late. I mean, compared to what we've seen a lot for the Valkyries in mid, this Raijin is something I'm leaning on. They've been looking better and better, and this is a good draft for them. I think that there's not quite a lot of synergy just yet for that Fafnir. Maybe that's the only real thing I can pick apart. But the Raijin, as well as Fafnir, as well as Gilgamesh, are top gods in their role and all really good performers specifically for the Valkyries, and so they're setting themselves up for success.
Feels like a pretty good ROM pick here for the Camelot Kings. If you look at the Fafnir, synergizing well with that bow build, ROM and Artemis feel like they're at the forefront of that conversation, and so Artemis gets banned away by the Valkyries, and the Kings take the other option, and a great one for Netrioid. Kind of a dual-purpose pick there. You get something for Netrioid that he's played now 6 times in the last 7 games, counting this game we're about to go into, and take away what could have been one of the top-tier picks for Emilito. So, really good for both teams here. And then the Kings identifying what are we most scared of around this Fafnir pick. Well, Izanami is still there, so you're going to take that one off the board. On the other side, though, mentioned how Variety in the Hell is a scary thought. Variety apparently in Aphrodite is a scary thought, or could have been in the mid lane even for BMT. But the Morgan Le Fay also taken off the table. So difference in mindset score from both of these teams in the second wave of bans.
And honestly, you want to talk about numbers, I want to say leaning heavily towards one side than the other. It's when you look at the win rates that things really start to break. The Osiris, the Terra, and the ROM. Granted, it's going to be skewed, right? One of these teams has a lot of wins, the other one doesn't. But every single one of these gods for the Kings right now is an 80% plus win rate for them. I mean, they are all constantly
on
onslaughts.
You're not squeaking by at like 51.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, and some of them, like, it's worth mentioning, the Kings do have some, like, I think it's the Fafnir for Genetics is around that 50% mark. This is just a really good draft for them, and you had mentioned the comfort, but it's going to be coming in with really hard hitting.
And it feels, Gore, now if we can return to the Hunter conversation, you know, Emilito might have liked the Ram or the Izanami or the Artemis, but of course none of those 3 available. So Xbalanque ends up being the pick here for the Valks duo lane that we've given some attention to going into this matchup. So Fafnir plus X-Ball in lane up against Rom and Terra. What kind of confidence does that give you?
Honestly, I like it. I don't know how much it's going to find control. Again, it's genetic setup that is going to be very difficult, and the Netroid, who I just described as maybe the most self-sufficient hunter, Imolito gets left on that island, and it hasn't necessarily been as successful for him, but Fafnir and Xbalanque can work well together. And admittedly, Xbalanque, he doesn't get the same benefits your Artemis and Rom are going to have. So early on, he's probably going to need to get a little more boost, which is not necessarily where I'm thinking of my Xbalanques as that early game play. But later, in the middle of a team fight, this is a good draft for the Valkyries.
Wow. Gore, I am curious, and I'll give you a second to look it up. Now, what the Giannis win rate is for this Kings team. So if we get to a point where all 5 picks are 80+% win rates, go ahead.
For Phase 2, it's just 75.
Oh no!
Man.
But you can round up, right? It's 5 is where you bump up. No, we're
exactly.
Not
You just round up 5%.
Just round up a big old 5%.
Well, here you go.
So
if they win,
75+ is still
if
good,
they
though,
win
right?
this game, it will be 80%.
It will be
because
a little bit
they've only
higher.
played
All right.
4 games so far this phase with him.
And then Hercules for some aggression, and I'm going to assume that's Variety over in solo lane playing
Now I
that
gotta look that
Hercules
one
here,
up just
Gore.
for
Xing Chen is what's being hovered now for the Valkyries to round out their draft. But let's talk about what's locked in here for the Kings. We've shown some love to the Valkyries draft. Osiris, Terra, Rom, Giannis, Hercules. Outside of win rates, do you think that's a comp that works well together?
Just look to sort of bully inside of this solo lane.
Yeah, Ducky's going to play very carefully with this Xing Chen. Has a lot of CC, but also has a lot of safety. Has the double jump, has the hook slam for that extra bit of CC, and has some basic attack reduction as well in that first ability. So Ducky should be relatively safe on this Guardian going up against Variety, but it is still Hercules. It's something you've got to be paying attention to.
Yeah, Shington primarily here for the team fight, but Ducky's still chilling at that level 1 Variety, already looking for the grab and slam. Typically you see that from Shington, but both these side lanes getting pretty frisky so far.
I want to talk about some good first blood potential. Let's talk about Terra. 2 forms of CC. Once she hits level 3 at least, and you can have all 3 of your abilities leveled up. One of the better power spikes for Guardians, especially for kill potential. Johnny blinks in, trying to find Big Man Tings, leaps on top, and one more basic. Johnny, once again for the Valkyries, striking first blood.
All this discussion about early game aggression, hard to miss out the conversation surrounding Gilgamesh and Raijin.
Gilgamesh going for things like Serket and Fenrir and trying to feed the mid laner.
I feel like Ducky genuinely channeled all of his rage into just punishing Nika in that set against the Warriors, but that's the same kind of aggression though that I wouldn't be surprised to see him try to utilize maybe later on. Johnny, on the other hand, he's looking to keep the game pace going in favor of the Valkyries.
Netroid in danger as well as Imolito. Disarm goes through, so Netroid can't fire those basics. Now Netroid Imolito has to walk away, but Netroid still pumping some basics into Rapper. The second Sunder comes through, stun from Genetics, and a blink by Captain Twig, looking for a kill if he can. Diving the tower for Rapper, one more basic will do it, and Captain Twig responds for the Kings.
Great recognition there from Twig to just try and take advantage of how far the Valkyries started pushing up outside of that tower line. Can't blame him because it looked so promising for Imolito for a second there, and the Dust kind of touched on it as well, J-Mag, but this Xbalanque matchup against the Rom, not as bad as it might appear to be on paper. Meanwhile, Variety doing his best to defend his blue buff. Great job there, able to actually secure it with the Earthbreaker against the invade from Johnny and Ducky.
In all honesty, if I'm banning a single god away from this player, I would say the Terra is probably the top of my list.
It is surprising to see Genetics get this Terra, given how strong Earth and Fury can appear to be.
Zeros.
Zero's going to be forced out of the purification feed. Some nice poke damage coming in response. Seemed as though Genetics was originally going to be pressured, but table turn that easily in favor of the Camelot Kings, and now Big Man Teams, Genetics, they just gonna take the left side mid Heartbeats for free.
This Conduit Gem Chronos Pendant out of the Giannis is doing a lot of damage and getting a lot of cooldowns for Variety. Stuck in place, Johnny jumps in, wins the Shamash, will keep Variety locked in place, doing everything that he can, but the assist from Emil with the blind makes it impossible for him to get away, and Ducky is the one who gets the credit for the kill.
Heads up play as well from Ducky, forcing that driving strike earlier on. Jungle trying to see if they could find a pick punish moment up against this Gilgamesh.
And Big Man Tings, he'll be safe with the Giannis. Captain Twig. Blinked pass by Johnny. Zeros on the bottom side of the map, trying to cut off the path for them. Genetics gets spotted, and he'll be forced back towards his tower. Meanwhile, Captain Twig ran the opposite direction, and now Ducky has made his rotation. Genetics in danger, stuck against the wall. Went to Shamash, and the Whirlwind will be thrown. Genetics is still alive for the moment until Rapper puts him in the dirt. Zero's up in the ultimate, looking for anything that he can, but Variety is in the middle of 4, just trying to get back to the portal that big man has set him, and luckily, he will be able to make it back.
Surrounded and collapsed on to the fullest extent there. Camelot Kings just drastically outnumbered, and I don't even think they realized it, but 2 separate 2 versus 4 engagements, and they just did not have the appropriate measures to respond in time. Captain Twig even having to expend that Lord of the Afterlife, and they've had great responses so far, but at the same time, it's definitely difficult to try and maintain that level of response against the global rotation assets like a Giannis.
And Malaysia's back got stopped by Netroid, who's pushing up aggressively under the tower into the sky. He'll go looking for as many snipes, gets 2, needs the 3rd one, misses it, but he's got Genetics and Captain Twig is back up to try and chase him down. Luckily, Captain Twig can find those shots, able to get Emily2 under the tower.
And that's where it becomes a little bit more painful to be the Xbalanque. No point in even trying to utilize those purification beads. Emilito was dead to rights here from that Camelot King's aggression. And Netroid's got to be careful, though. Not wanting to take too many shots from tower. And Johnny as well, finally having a chance. Primary reason being, we have 5 different players on 5 varying levels of EU ping. It is very difficult to play at this level.
Captain Twig has caught up to Johnny in experience at least, and Big Man Tings continues to grow his lead from the mid lane, sitting top of the experience charts for everybody on the map. Genetics gets stunned by Rapper. Johnny looking for any further aggression. Immediately, Genetics will throw a wall. Zeros goes into the ultimate, but Captain Twig has re-rotated back towards this mid lane, feared away by the final beat of the drum. Tings throws the ultimate, but not going to find anything further from it. Captain Twig walks through the portal, but nothing much further from there. Rapper tosses asunder and orders a Draconic transformation to get away from the stun from Captain Twig, but he'll fall through a portal, fall through the walls, take some damage, but Netroid is now rotated over, looking for Zeros on the tower. He's blinded, so he can't see too many targets available. Rapper will go down. 2nd shot will get it. Looking for the 3rd will hit him. Emily2, who's also rotated across, but the Odysseus bows are starting to bounce between Genetics. All the while, still alive throughout all of this. Johnny has to use the bead so he doesn't fall through the portal. Captain Twig blinks over, still looking to hunt down Johnny. Inevitably, looks like he will fall. Stun comes through, an unstable vortex.
Unfortunate for Johnny that before that last year's
Still?
fight isn't over yet. Variety with a blink punishing Zeros, trying to get away with that back under tower. Still had his ultimate available, and there is nothing worse than just having that boulder crashing down on top of you. Valhalla Valkyries looked as though they were out for blood here in mid, J-Mag, but it's actually Camelot Kings who turned things around entirely. Really seeing them start to play a little bit more together and through each other, and then we just see 3 separate engagements take place, but that's also credit to the Camelot Kings for just driving them all over the place.
Zero speed's burned by Genetics. Raffer gets shoved back into 3 thanks to the help of Variety falling through the portal. Has to use the ultimate immediately in response. Boulder comes through and the tap is enough damage with the help of Genetics to take him down. Captain Twig ults in place, looking for anything. Johnny kicks him right back into the winds just to shove him away from the team. The Camelot Kings get 1.
But with Variety having rotated back into mid and that pick onto Raffer, Valhalla Valkyries won't be able to defend this Gold Fury. They're going to instantly start heading towards this Pyromancer, but Variety Genetics, they're not going to let them take that one for free either.
Johnny kicks him against the wall. Zeros goes to the Taiko drums looking for some damage against Variety, but the snipes from Netroid are slamming into Emilito. Ducky gets 1 big pull with this ultimate, able to get 1. Variety falling low. Johnny and Ducky looking to turn this one around and take him down. Johnny picks up the double kill, and Ducky's still looking for more under the tower. Roots Netroid in place. Johnny and Ducky both trying to take him down. Ducky taking up the tower for the team, but they're ultimately not able to take down the Hunter.
Nice relic usage there from Netroid to stay alive, but not so that the Valhalla Valkyries are healthy enough to actually get anything after the fact. Sure, it's nice to get a nice shutdown onto Ting's farming. A little over aggressive there. They just took the Gold Fury, and instead of backing and prioritizing that, they were just dead set on stopping the Valhalla Valkyries in their tracks on this Pyromancer.
Captain Twig gonna try and stop the second attempt at the Pyromancer. He'll walk into the Fire Giant pit and actually cause a little bit of aggro to be thrown his way. Pyromancer back for the Valhalla Valkyries. They're going to try and take this one away, but Captain Twig steals it with the flail. Winter Shamash dropped. Captain Twig thrown into the midst of it. Raptor goes up into the dragon form looking for anything, but Twig has been signaled out by Ducky, and Johnny Rapper gets the credit for the kill. Variety stunned, Variety in danger. He'll have to use his sleep. Luckily, he's got the portal to get through. Might be just enough for him. Zeros goes in the ultimate looking for one drum is all he needs, and he will find it.
That's a tough one. I feel like we could tell Zeros was
Seen the
sweating.
Loki banned away from him so many times that now he doesn't even care about the Loki. Teams have stopped banning it because they're not worried anymore with it, so now he gets to try his hand at some of these other big hitters.
Just a lot more team fight orientation from this Valhalla Valkyries draft. More importantly, J-Mac, I think that the Camelot Kings maybe not respecting the damage output out of this Valhalla Valkyries squad because they keep expending so much just to delay, but they're not as grouped up as the Valhalla Valkyries are during a lot of these challenges, and that's why we keep seeing the likes of Twig getting picked, Variety getting picked.
Variety trying to pick somebody, but doesn't grab anything on the tail end of it. So, for now, the Valhalla Valkyries will be safe under their Tier 1 unless Genetics and Captain Twig have something different to say. Genetics will end up missing that wall, and it's now Variety versus Johnny in the jungle. Ducky roots Netroid in place, but Monolith thrown down to give Netroid a little bit of extra safety, not just with the healing, but also with the protections. Variety gets the pluck, but unfortunately, a little bit of geometry clips Zeros, and he doesn't get pulled back.
Variety still wanting more, gonna
Twig.
extend that boulder, but it's Genetics with the dive blink in the Earth and Fury onto all four and eat that T1 tower. Now Ducky spin to win, but grabs nobody.
Variety's gonna shove Rapper to the back. Netroid gets 2 snipes, and that's all he needs to take down the Hunter. So far, 1-0 for the Camelot Kings. Looking for more. Ducky gets picked up after falling through the portal, but no further push. Meanwhile, speaking of a push, Johnny shoves Captain Twig against the wall so that the way the rest of the Camelot Kings can start surging to this Tier 1 tower. Unstable Vortex just misses Zeros. The Tier 1 tower will fall.
Twig still chasing down Johnny, Lord of the Afterlife. He's spending into the dropkick, wins his Shamash now coming out. Johnny might have just bought himself an escape route. Meanwhile, Twig, he could be in real danger here with Ducky right behind him.
Ducky so close to taking him down. Johnny jumps in aggressively. The flail comes, or the tether comes out, and that's more than enough for Captain Twig to be able to get away. The backstep by Ducky buys just enough time for the blink. But all the while, Taco, they were baiting that fight in the jungle so that way they could keep that Tier 2 tower as their primary target for the Kings. Of a route, Berserker Shield and the Talisman of Energy. Meanwhile, for Johnny, he's going very glass cannon style with mostly just damage, a little bit of protection thanks to the help of the Wing Blade, but he's still very squishy.
Valhalla Valkyries, though, all grouped up. Rapper gonna get plucked, but will be able to jump out from the driving strike. Blinking from Ducky. He's looking for Captain Twig.
Captain Twig gets knocked up by Ducky. Ultimate thrown him right into the backside. Genetics tries to block him with the wall, but unsuccessful. Captain Twig with no relics, no ultimate. He's not going to make it out of there. Emily2 uses the Aegis, and the last shot from Netroid will not find him. Ducky low, Rapper low. He gets shoved right back into the middle of 5, and Netroid, the one to pick him up. Zeros running as fast as he can. Ting's just doing major damage to Ducky, and Zero's hook slam comes through. Roots 2 in place, but Variety still surging forward, looking for any aggression that he can find, or maybe even just looking for one good pluck. Through the wall goes Big Man Ting. Zeros just barely makes it away from that unstable vortex.
Variety, though, he doesn't care about Ducky having that root in place, but he's going to have to regroup with the rest of his squad. Camelot Kings maybe going a little too deep here, considering that Fire Giant's still up for grabs.
Earlier on, getting 2-3 picks and losing basically no one, but they weren't getting anything off the back. They weren't getting Tier 1 towers. They weren't getting Pyromancers, Gold Furies, or even Fire Giants like they're starting up here. Genetics at half, and Captain Twig walking back from the base. Genetics walks forward, eats the Raiju, and a lot of damage from it. Ducky gets a nice pickup on 2, throws him in the back. Zeros manages to pick him up through space and time from Big Man Tings. Looking for anything, but it's a triple dunk out of Captain Twig, looking for any escape route he has. Gets taunted back in with the Taiko drums towards the rest of the team. Captain Twig low, and Captain Twig falls. Double kill for Zeros.
Huge showing right now from Zeros. He is putting in the work on this Raijin, just completely facilitating so much of this map pressure. Ducky teleport back into the ward. Fire Giant not going to be fully committed to just yet. Valhalla Valkyries recognizing still some members of Camelot Kings hanging around that have been left alive. Variety could be in trouble, but it's Ducky who's getting melted.
Netroid in the sky looking for snipes, needs all 3 to take anybody down. Huge push by Variety, just sets up massive damage for Tings and Netroid. Able to get 2 instantly with the pick, and Big Man Tings looking for more, takes down Rapper for the double, and still with Ducky on the run, there's another chance for it. Ducky has the leap to get away, but how much further can he go? Big Man Ting has a lot of movement speed thanks to that threshold, and maybe they can just catch Ducky out.
Ducky, though, having already expended the blink, but blinking against a Giannis who can literally do that every few seconds. But Johnny right behind Big Man Team's going to try to pick him into the wall.
Nice push.
To escape through the portal. Winter Shamas now being committed, but it's the Earth and Fury into that through space and time, and Johnny is gone with the boulder.
Variety just puts him down and says, don't ever try and attack my mid laner when I'm around. Beautiful push by Variety, shoves him away, forces Johnny to have to use the ultimate, but immediately in response, Genetic shows up, and Variety with the actual tail end there. And also just a huge ultimate by Big Man Ting. Does nearly 700 damage to Johnny. And we were talking about it earlier, Johnny doesn't have a whole lot of defenses to his name, so he's eating a massive amount of damage back from that mid laner. And all of that sets up for the Fire Giant.
They have to be a prime focus here for the Camelot Kings. They can just take their time, stripping away that final T2 tower. Might even throw a little bit of pressure underneath this left side Phoenix just to see what they can grab. Whether it's successful or not, they still have that primal they can fall back to.
Phoenix, they will go. Ducky looking for any pickup he can. Managed to get Big Man Tings, but a quick beat. Make sure that the mid laner can get away. That's the first ultimate of the fight. Expended is just Ducky's plus his blink, so that relic is now on cooldown as well. Johnny looking for a pick if he can, but gets spotted by Variety. Variety shoves him against the wall. Meanwhile, Genetics and Captain Twig at the front line under the Phoenix, but Netroid can't get any damage back. Instead, they're looking for Ducky. Snipes coming through. Needs the third one for the damage to kill him out. Doesn't find it, just off the mark. And now Zero's trying to turn the fight back on its head as Captain Twig is falling very low through space and time. Takes a lot of damage out of Johnny's health bar, but Johnny will make it back to the fountain.
All of the Valhalla Valkyries just scrambling into their base, trying to stay alive for as long as possible. Left side Phoenix, so having been taken out, means that the Camelot Kings now have their escape route, and so much expended just to escape in general here for the Valhalla Valkyries. They could be in real trouble.
Johnny and Ducky somehow barely made it out of that fight with just a sliver of health. Raiju doing a lot of damage to the frontliners as Captain Twig is well under half health and still surging forward are the Valkyries, looking for anything that they can. Curse Stomp comes through. Gen X throws out the ultimate. Ducky with another whirlwind, throws just Variety in the back, but he throws the boulder at 3, and Netroid punishes him, putting him in the dirt. Ducky down. 3 low. Johnny nowhere to be found amongst the fight. Genetics goes in, gets a stun on Zero, so that's going to be his life taken out. Triple kill for Netroid. Emily2 narrowly avoids the Earthbreaker, and now it looks like it's going to be a Titan push forward. Maybe Netroid just looking for more. Gets the Aegis from Emily2. Netroid has to use the bead so he doesn't get shoved back in the fountain. But a Titan under half health. Through the portal goes Johnny, and it looks like the Valhalla Valkyries are going to close out, or Camelot Kings will close out game number 1 and put the Valkyries at a major disadvantage.
It was a little interesting there for a second from Netroid. I thought for a moment that he was actually going to die.
Don't they, Gore? I mean, they start things off well. They receive some pressure basically all over the map. Look at this. I mean, they're up in kills, but they're behind in gold in a lot of these highlights, and that's the important thing to look at. And by the time that this game kind of hit mid-game, Gore, the Camelot Kings consistency really shone through.
I think that's exactly what it is, right? You get a good start from the Valkyries, which has been kind of, as of late, what they've been starting off. Very reminiscent of last year's Obey team, though, right? You start off with a decent lead, you're keeping things even, and then it just starts to get out of hand, usually around the 15-minute mark or any point after that, for sure. And this was just a good, clean game from the Kings. You could see, even though I think the team synergy maybe for the picks all around might have been there a little bit larger for the Valkyries, it didn't necessarily matter when it got to the actual team fight stage. Netroid just had himself a whale of a time, did not die, or at least at this point was 5-0-7. And they're just ramming through the Valkyries like it's nothing. Ed, you had mentioned it, we were talking about it at the very beginning, but a lot of it is the setup, I would argue, not just from Genetics, who had 10 assists, but also Variety, who had so much to provide for that team just to make sure that Tings and Netroid could land easy damage.
There was that awesome highlight in the middle of that package there. It's a double push from Variety immediately into the damage from Big Man Tings. Felt like everyone was finding some level of setup here for the carries. It's almost like just the peak of Smite game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where every front line's doing the setup, your back lines are hitting their damage. 38,000 of it.
That's a lot.
By the way, for Netroid. Undying 707. Picks and bans for game 2. Are you taking the ROM away?
That's actually the question. It's way better than do they try to ban it? Because what do you not ban? Last time they banned Hell, they banned Tiamat, they banned Artemis. Are you going to let him play Artemis? He honestly might opt for the ROM over the Artemis at this point. And so that already seems like it's going to be a little bit shaky. But it was the Gilgamesh Raijin. Do you give up one of your top 2s in order to make your opposition slightly less comfortable? You had mentioned it as being, the last 6 of his games, right? But if you're going to go down the list, he's also widely successful on the Anhur. Played him 8 times so far this year. You go down even further, that's where it actually gets hard. I'm having trouble finding another Hunter. Chiron, way back when Chiron was happening. I mean, it's just he's getting so consistent at these maybe 2-3 picks that it doesn't really matter if you just ban one. He's going to have another one to go to.
I'm sure he loves winning because in the last 6 games, the Kings have won all of them.
Because they've been winning, yeah.
I wonder if it gets
I think
boring.
everyone
Do you
loves
think
winning.
it's boring just
Dave,
winning?
what a nothing statement. Everyone loves winning, Dave.
No, but it's a 2-part statement. I'm sure he loves winning, but
Okay.
I wonder if it gets boring if you're doing it on the same pick. He's just won all of his ROM games recently, right? I mean, it's just been a whole bunch of ROM. I wonder if he's tired of playing ROM.
Dave, I'm sorry I gave you trouble back there. that was a real funch moment.
Way back when you just
no, like right there, like 2 seconds ago. Yeah, that
okay.
one's on me. I should have let you finish your statement.
I should keep my sentences to individual statements.
Yeah.
And that'll avoid confusion in the future.
Exactly.
If I just make one clear-cut statement, then we won't have to worry about those sort of things in the future.
That was one compounded statement, though.
It was one compound.
It should have been, I should just make one clear statement, period. That way we don't have to worry about it.
Oh, man, I'm doing a poor job of it already. My goodness. Let's catch back up here with some of the bans, though. Gore, Hell taken away from Variety. No surprise there. Tiamat also taken off the table. Big Man Tings looks great on that pick. And I'm actually not all that surprised, Gore, by this Raijin ban here, because there were moments in that game where we saw Zeros have a great team fight, kept things interesting, found some good damage that game. And so it almost feels bad for the Valkyries where you get this one piece of your team fight that's working well, and now it gets taken away. But Johnny also looked good on the Gilgamesh.
He did look really good.
I don't hate returning to that.
I actually would prefer that. What was banned instead of the Raijin last time was the Fenrir. And I think I'd rather see the Gilgamesh again. I think Johnny, especially with the way this team is pivoted, you can go for these, I'm going to carry, I'm going to do it all by myself, like put the backpack on.
Right.
It didn't work for the Valks for half the year so far, right? And so this last few weeks, they've been looking better, and it has been not trying to play explicitly through Johnny. Johnny has been able to get good kills. Johnny's been able to get good setup. He's playing a lot more like the rest of the junglers in the league. So the Gilgamesh makes sense. But now it's where do you go for Zeros? Because Zeros has been playing a whole lot of Raijin. And Zeros has been doing not a whole ton else. I mean, I guess their Neath has been picked up a ton for them, and he typically goes for that in mid, although Imolito has definitely been picking that up. Otherwise, after Raijin, you really have to shake it down. They've been let to have Tiamat a few times. They're banning that. So their mid pick is maybe the most important one to me, because it's going to have to pair up with that Gilgamesh well.
Yeah, Gilgamesh, Fafnir, similar, not similar, the exact same as what the Valkyries had as far as frontline goes. Different pick order. It was Gilgamesh, something else, and then Fafnir a little bit later on. It was Gilgamesh, Raijin, and then Fafnir. King's hovering Ullr here. Again, purely for my own mental preference. I just want to see a full sheet of ROM played for Netrioid, but maybe when things are getting stale in the Hunter game, you throw out one of the more fun Hunters to play, and that's Ullr. Not the case. So I will get some satisfaction here, as all 6 of the last games that Netrioid has played will have been on this ROM.
So is it more satisfaction if not just all 6 of them are ROM, but they're all 6 wins, or?
Yeah, that adds to it.
Okay.
Really, I mean, it's the fact. And if you
so you're rooting against the Valkyries. We got it right here.
If you go
featured
it could be
SBL waiting room. We're putting it on there.
Nope, could be anyone. It could be anyone. It could be someone on the Valkyries playing all last.
Come on.
No, Gore.
Play with me.
I'm not giving you anything. At least not in that category. That is a sore topic, Gore. We're not going down that road. Fafnir and Izanami, because remember, when Fafnir was drafted later on for the Valkyries, it was Raijin before this. Fafnir was the 3rd pick, and that gave the Kings the opportunity to ban out a Hunter against Emilito. And Izanami was that answer for the Kings in the ban phase. So maybe something that synergizes a little bit better with this Fafnir and the Iza.
Yeah, and honestly, it fits, at least in terms of where we've been seeing this tier list lately, a lot better than Xbalanque. Xbalanque was played by the Bolts a couple of times, and the Bolts looked okay with it for the most part. I think they went 2-2 in terms of games that they had played. The Tsunami's been on the rise. She fits really well with the build right now, and I'm interested to see how well Emilito can pilot this, specifically against that ROM on the other side. That's where things get a lot more difficult, is taking on Netroid, because they weren't giving you any breathing room. I mean, you had said it. He was 7-0-7, and there's going to be the fun one. You have his last 6 games pulled up. When was the last time he died?
Oh, man. No, so here's the thing.
I should know that. I'm supposed to know that.
No,
but
I
I'm asking
pivoted
you.
off his last 6 games when we move forward. Well, no, the internet is great, and these Alienware PCs are super quick. He died. Unfortunately, he died literally the last game they played. Not against the Valks, but against the Solar Scarabs. He died once, but he was 7-1-6. Died twice in the first game. In that, in the last 6 games, Netroid has died 8 times. And a couple of those games being 0 death games. So Netroid's been on an absolute hot streak. In my scrambling to pull up some stats here, Gore, an interesting pick has been locked in here. Zhang Kui is locked in here for the Valkyries. Not at a 0% win rate anymore.
No.
Still
he's not.
I'm not confident, though, in the increase for Zhang Kui.
His one win was a solo lane win, right, if I'm remembering correctly?
Yeah, I think it was the Bolts or the Dragons
it was fine,
that picked it against maybe one of the teams that was having a coach sub in that week. Not
2
sure.
wins.
But let's catch back up here, Gore. Zhang Kui and Ao Kwong picked for the Valkyries. That's a very Johnny pick, isn't it, the Ao Kwong?
By having a pick that I think can prioritize sort of corralling the members of the Camelot Kings more together, but I think that the issue that I have here with AO is you want to play flank and for the backline, but you also need to try and be a centerpiece for setup in general for your mid laner, and I'm just not sold on the fluidity of this draft right now for the Valkyries.
Maybe a bit of an answer to try and get some of that burst magical damage, while Zhang Kui, not necessarily known for his big burst earlier on, can get some as the stage goes on, but Ao Kwong can fit that boot if you need a big chunk of magical damage thrown at somebody really quickly by way of that Wild Storm and the Dragon Call. We'll see what he's able to do in this first game. He's already making strides against Big Man Tings, but hasn't gone for the Dragons just yet. Instead, has that Water Illusion for his second ability.
Also want to keep an eye on Genetics here and how he fares up against this Emilito Raffer combination of the Izza and Fafnir. Something to keep in mind, if he catches Izza with that root, even if she dashes away, she'll still be rooted in place for a second or two. So that's definitely something Emilito will have to be cognizant of as team fights start breaking out. If it approaches that stage, there's a chance that the Camelot Kings, the amount of side lane pressure they've opted for here, J-Mac, just might run away with this one early on.
Zero seats a sigil and puts him a little bit low. Emilito gets rooted in place by the Kepri, and Netroid just needs one follow-up basic to do the job. That'll be first blood going the way of the Kings and maybe a little more. But luckily for Johnny, he's able to get back to the safety of the tower thanks to that Water Illusion.
Analysis of drafts in general, but Variety, a little bit of trouble here up against Ducky on this Gilgamesh. Hercules not going to be as much of a bully, I'd imagine. Netroid, on the other hand, though, he's looking to bully Raffer.
Raffer falling low, the Rising Dawn doing a lot of tick damage to him, but not quite enough to pop him down to kill threshold.
I'm skeptical to see Zeros try and attempt to pick up the blink in this one, though, J-Mac. I think he's going to need that Aegis in the secondary slot, but understanding that early on, even though Sunder can be detrimental, it's not like... I think the AO pick does force Camelot Kings into going the 5 purification beats like we've already seen. And Genetics looking to punish Johnny with Captain Twig.
Captain Twig getting a lot of damage against Johnny. He'll pop a potion, but he's got 3 surrounding him, able to get his own blink just because he avoided enough damage. Raffer into the Dragon, looking for a stun, only finds Genetics. Captain Twig's low, Zeros rotates through, and the Ghosts are doing quite a bit of damage. Captain Twig gets a nice revive available. Execute is up for Johnny, but the beads are still available for Captain Twig. Instead, it's Variety who manages to find the first kill of the fight. Zeros goes down, Boulder tossed by Variety, looking for any target. Now Raffer low in mana and de-transforming. He is a sitting duck and falls down. Variety picks up the double.
Johnny, though, still on the hunt here for Captain Twig. Could potentially even look towards Genetics. He's just hovering from behind everyone. Gonna invest into the Watery Illusion. A little low, but it's a nice driving strike from Variety, and Johnny might be dead to rights here. Snipes coming through from Netroid as well. Johnny's still on the run.
Gets put back up and put back in the dirt as Variety picks up his 3rd kill of the game now on a killing spree. A nice attempt there by Netroid. I like the shots for the snipes, but just a little bit off the mark, and Johnny, Zhang Kui to go with this Ao Kwong.
think the problem is the Camelot Kings, they know that Netroid is a nuisance with the ROM. They know how strong their AC is, they have full faith in him, and they're willing to prioritize picking it super early on. Rapper might get picked here in the mid lane. It's going to be Zeros joining the fray now, trying to buy some time, but ultimate expended and no one caught out.
Lord of the Afterlife used as well as Zero's ultimate sigil hits 2, and then the wildfire immediately afterwards. Not quite enough damage to take down Zeros. He does avoid the dragon flight. Johnny gonna get some nice return damage back against big man Tings. A lot of skirmishing happening in the jungle, but nobody falls just yet, and no relics need to be burned. Well, Variety had to burn his beads on this right side going up against Ducky.
He's just looking for the quick clear, gonna expend that boulder, not matter anymore. And AO, I think, just would lose a lot of his value if the Valhalla Valkyries continue to struggle and even forcing the purification mechanics.
Pyromancer started by the Kings, and they'll be able to take that one down relatively quickly, but Ducky blinks into the back line looking for something, doesn't find the Pyromancer. That goes the way of the Camelot Kings, but Ducky being attacked by Variety, he gets the pickup and the push as well. Gets the purification beats from him. A little surprised, but Ducky may just be a little worried of what could have been waiting for him afterwards.
Oh man, Netroid is out for blood here up against
These two
Emilito.
hunters looking through across the build. Silver Branch is done for Netroid, where Flipside Emilito going into this Balance Blade tree.
And I think what I'm noticing the most between these two comps, actually all that Netroid up into the Astral Barrage, just trying to buy time for the rotations to come
Twig.
through from Camelot Kings, and Emilito could be in some real trouble here.
Third snipe does hit Emilito. Captain Twig picks up Netroid a little bit low, but now Johnny is on the run, gets caught out of the stealth immediately by Variety. Boulder comes through, and Netroid gets one more basic to put him down. 6 on the board for the Camelot Kings, and maybe looking for more, at least looking for this Gold Fury.
And Ducky, he's made the rotation all the way over from Solo as well to match that of Variety, but it might be too little too late. Without his blink being available, it's not like he can actually try and aggress into this Gold Fury. And the Valhalla Valkyries, they lose 2, they lose the gold and the map pressure, as well as gold experience and leads in general just continue to go in favor of the King. Comparison to that of the Valhalla Valkyries.
Greater Scorpion will fall down. Camelot Kings get the credit for that, so they'll enhance the buffs on both sides of the map because they did manage to take both. Ducky can't get the drop kick through because Variety shoves him against the wall, and Ducky will push back against him and say, well, let me try and use some of my CC. Johnny, level 15 on the Ao Kuang, uses the water illusion to get away. Variety chasing the wrong direction, will not manage to find Johnny, so a nice little stealth out for him. Genex gets a route just onto Zeros and Tier 1 Tower under siege. Variety going for some big plucks if he can, but not going to find anything else on the backside.
And Johnny, he's trying to hunt, but it's going to be tough getting behind this Camelot Kings draft. Rapper trying to go forward under that Winds of Shamash, but Variety, he's just taking up these T2 tower shots, no problem. Meanwhile, Captain Twig just chases Johnny into his dead injury.
That's a big solo kill on the jungler, and no further follow-up from Johnny. Didn't even use the ultimate to try and push him away. Tier 2 tower falls. Raffer gets caught by Genetics instantly. Luckily for him, he's got the lead. The wildfire's good, but the boulder is even better. An extra ult just for good measure from Netroid to make sure he gets put down.
It was really just a matter of who was going to kill Rapper first. Emilito all the while just trying to
no,
see for some
Zeros.
gold. Zeros without that ultimate available. There's no demons that he can try and utilize for his favor. 18.5 minutes, and we're going to see the first Phoenix fall here of the game. It does work best. It just seems that the Camelot Kings have all the right assets to basically counter-initiate and handle it.
7,500 gold lead by the Camelot Kings here, just shy of 20 minutes, and looking to set up for the first Fire Giant attempt of the game. Genetics gets stunned. Ducky does some damage, but they don't even break Genetics' shield. That's how little they have against this Guardian so far. Genetics is undeterred walking up to 3 or 4 players. Captain Twig is undeterred, just W-King at Rapper just like Variety has. Plus is good, but even better stun. And the winds drop down. Ducky's in danger. Netroid gets him with the snipe, and now Johnny has to run away. Lord of the Afterlife by Twig. Johnny has no illusion, no way to get out, and no ultimate to save his life. The beats from Captain Twig make sure he can continue the chase just like the rest of the team. Collapses onto Rapper and puts him down.
Netroid is just completely melting the entirety of the Valhalla Valkyries. Last game we saw him having to prioritize a little bit more of that attack speed 10 base build because of the front line out of the Valhalla Valkyries, but this go around it is primarily mages and squishies and Variety reminding Emilito who's actually boss in this mid lane right now. Emil barely managing to stay alive, still has his beads, Aegis in tow, so Variety tries to go a little bit too deep here. I think this is an Ami escape.
uses the stealth to get away. That's where Variety was hunting. He said, okay, Emily2's going back towards the fountain. Easy, I got this. I'll get him right out of stealth. And then Emily2 beelined the other direction, actually went towards the door to walk out of the base to make sure he get away. But, well, I mean, look where Variety's standing. We're 21 minutes in, and he's standing behind enemy lines, sitting inside their base, trying to do something. Right side Phoenix under siege. The Camelot Kings will shove that one quickly and make quick work of the bird. Meanwhile, Variety still standing in the back line. He'll push Ducky back. Rapper takes a bit of damage, feared away by the sigil. It looks like the Camelot Kings may want to go for a retreat here unless Variety has something to say about it. We'll get the catch out onto Emily2. Rapper gets plucked by Genetics, and that may just be the end of Rapper. Luckily for him, he's got the leap to get away. Ducky drops the ult in the back line, looking for anybody, but it's his own life that he's got to worry about.
Honestly, the saving grace right now for the Valhalla Valkyries is that Netroid doesn't have that Deathbringer online just yet, but Emilito, he won't get a chance to dash away. Astral Barrage raining down upon him, as well as the Morgan Le Fay DPS. Captain Twig gonna clean up Johnny with the overhead smash, and just like that, a clean deicide for the Camelot Kings, and the Valhalla Valkyries gonna find themselves with yet another set loss. But a great fight, I think, that they put up in game number 1. Game number 2, that one kind of just gets away
Fight
from
back
you
from
there.
the Valks throughout that game, but realistically, you just get to see some insane control that comes through from the Kings. A lot of just good carry potential. You had mentioned the fact that, well, Netroid's kind of been popping off on top of this ROM, has a pretty good game there. This Hercules was really good in game number 1, and guess what? It returned part 2. Here. I mean, it just feels like they were struggling to figure out where exactly they wanted to put their pressure. The Ao Kuang didn't necessarily get to become the hyper carry that we're used to seeing. Zhang Kui did exactly what Zhang Kui's been doing all year. He's 2-12 now. It just feels like a draft that wasn't necessarily destined to fail, but was going to be difficult to execute on to begin with. And then the Valkyries also weren't able to execute it in game, so it was difficult from conception. And it was only downhill from there for them. And the Kings, on the other side, just got to have a whale of a time.
Netroid did not die today. That is a fun fact. Nobody died in game number 2. So maybe not all that stand out of a fact. I believe it was 707 in game 1, then 608 in game 2. I'm not going to do that math, but that is double-digit kills, double-digit assists, and the big old goose egg in the death column.
Genetics is 2 times James Bond. It's 0014.
Or would it just be... No, you're right. 0014.
I was hoping that was going to be a funnier joke than it was. I apologize to everyone that had to hear that.
No, never apologize, Gore, because he was twice as sneaky with his Scarab's blessings, because we didn't catch him this game if they did end up coming out.
Tomorrow, that is not necessarily going to be a very easy one for them to try and just conquer. But the goal is, as you had highlighted, to stay up in those top 2. I guess if you're the Kings, top 2 if you're the Bolts. Maybe knock the Bolts down if you're the Dragons. That's also going to be an interesting matchup for the Kings when they have to face them. I believe that's next week.
Yep.
But ultimately, top 2, as long as the format is the exact same, so don't quote me on this, but I believe what we did for Phase 1 playoffs was the top 2, guess what, got the bye into immediately the semifinals. Yep. So that would be a great spot to be in if you are the Kings, and whoever is able to take either the top 2 or top 3, depending on how these next few sets go, because the Dragons, the Bolts, and the Kings are all just close enough. I think the Leviathans still might be close enough to be able to disrupt some things. It just depends on how a lot of these sets go, whether they're 2-0 wins, 2-0 losses for those top teams.
Disruption could happen tomorrow as the Leviathans and the Kings round out our broadcast on Saturday.